If you are into chasing upside in your fantasy football drafts, boy, do we have a rookie for you. It's Chris Brazzell II out of the University of Tennessee, a deep field threat wide receiver. We're going to get into his all 22 tape. We're going to break that down. We're going to look at some key analytic benchmarks to help understand his profile. We're going to take a look at that prospect's background, but also, John, we're going to put it all together here. We're going to finish up this episode giving some actionable fantasy football advice. First, before we get into it, folks, if you're watching on YouTube and you learn even one thing from this video, please do us a huge favor and give the video a like. It really helps us. The views have been absolutely outstanding this year. We want to keep that momentum going. And if you've been watching all these videos, or if it's your first, you want to get ahead of your league mates, you want to support the work that we're doing, get rookie rankings, personalized advice in the Discord, one-on-one draft consultation calls, and the 2026 Rookie Guide Volume 1, over 120 pages, 86 rookie profiles. Head on to the link in the episode description. It's patreon.com/rookiebigboard. All right, John, here we go. Let's get into Chris Brazzell II out of the University of Tennessee.
When I'm breaking down Chris Brazzell, I have to think about the Tennessee wide receivers over about the last 7 years in Josh Heupel's system here.
We don't have to. We don't have to do that.
when I was looking at Dante Thornton, Jalen Wyatt, Cedric Tillman, Josh Palmer, Velus Jones, I just keep thinking about Chris Brazzell. Where does he fit in this phylum of volunteer wide receivers? Ironically, the best NFL wide receiver in the last decade from Tennessee did not play for Josh Heupel. It's Jawan Jennings, who left before Heupel took over the program. So it's very important that we separate his skills from this volunteer offense. And it is an interesting offense. You know, these wide splits, the wide receivers run a very limited route tree. So you have to analyze these young men very specifically. At the combine, Matt, I did not expect a 4.38 40 out of the young man and a 1.52 10-yard split at 6'4", 198. So his speed is clearly on the film there, but we didn't get any other athletic measurements at the combine. So who is he? In high school, he was graded as a 3-star recruit and rated as a top 250 prospect in the state of Texas. He finished his high school career with 104 receptions for 1,596 receiving yards and 21 touchdowns. He enrolls at Tulane in 2022, and he only played in 2 games with the redshirt season. In 2023, he really begins to pop. He exploded for 44 catches, 711 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He averaged a whopping 16.2 yards per catch. He earned freshman All-American honors and All-ACC, AAC third team. Matt, I recommend that anyone go back and watch some of the film of him from Tulane. I actually thought he was a better route runner and ran more complex route as a redshirt freshman for Tulane than he did at Tennessee. But he makes a decision that was a good decision. He's going to transfer up to the SEC and compete at a higher level in 2024. As a redshirt sophomore, that first season in the Rocky Top, he only had 29 catches for 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. But last year, he took flight for the Volunteers. He started all 12 games, but he did not play in the Military Bowl. He had 62 catches for 1,017 yards and 9 touchdowns, averaging a really impressive 16.4 yards per catch. He's a home run hitter. These are outstanding numbers. He had 38 catches of over 10 yards. He had 9 catches over 30 yards, and he had 4 catches over 50 yards. I mean, he runs a lot of those deep posts and the deep ball outside the hash marks for Volunteers, and he's effective catching them. He was the SEC's leading receiver with 84.8 yards per game, and he was named to the All-SEC first team. He was a semifinalist for the Blitnikoff Award and the Earl Campbell Award. He received third-team All-American by the Associated Press. Matt, I think it's time that we delve into some of this film so we can get a better perspective of Chris Brazzell.
Yeah, the film is fun, right? Watching the Tennessee offense is fun. What you're going to see here is a lot of deep field targets, and he makes just some ridiculous catches along the way.
I agree. Really nice catches.
So he does run a nice slant, and you could see the acceleration, John. You know, the thing to keep in mind here, if you're not familiar with the Tennessee offense, a nice catch there. He holds on through contact. So you can see the large frame is absolutely there. Look at this. I mean,
oh, yeah.
You know, he comes back to that ball.
That was a bad thrown ball by Aguilar.
Well, yeah, most of them are. Look at this one. This one's ridiculous. I mean, you could say that looks like OPI from that angle, but watch this angle. Look, the guy just falls. Like, he's just, you know, there's so many times where Chris Brazzell's there, and you're like, how did that ball get into his hands? But if you're not familiar with the Tennessee offense, it's a variation of the veer and shoot. Basically, the wide receivers are spread so far out on the field. They're playing very close to the outside, you know, to the outside hash marks. And so it just opens up space. So the wide receivers, they don't really have to separate. As long as they're fast, they're going to be in space. And another really good example there. I mean, you can't help but get excited watching that, John, right? Like, he comes back to the ball. It's a good late adjustment. I mean, he has near elite late adjustment ability.
And you know what? He has good body control. And one-on-one, he's super dangerous in the deep part of the field.
Right. So, I mean, there is, you know, objectively, there is a lot to like and a lot to get excited about. It's not a perfect profile, though, because you're seeing really two routes, right? We've seen a slant route and a go route, and that's concerning.
Yeah. The big route.
Yeah, we got one in there. So, you know, the pros, great mental concentration. He wins in traffic. He wins in contested catch situations. In contested catch situations, his hands look very reliable. Clearly a large target, clearly a large catch radius. And we saw it at the combine, but you can see it on tape too. You know, he accelerates very well for his size. Limited route tree. I mean, you mentioned it, John. You know, you go back to his Tulane tape, you start to see a wide receiver developing his routes. And then, you know, he transfers to Tennessee, I think after 2 years at Tulane, right?
Yes.
And he doesn't have to. It's not a knock on him. He doesn't have to develop in terms of technical refinement to be a producer. He was over 1,000 yards with Tennessee last year. Doesn't separate consistently. And this is the big thing. And I'm a Tennessee fan, and we talk all the time. Try your best to pull players out of the scheme, but you have to understand that this scheme, and it's not just Tennessee, you know, when we get to Josh Cameron, we'll talk about Josh Cameron probably on our sleepers episodes, right? For wide receivers, you know, you look at Baylor and Josh Cameron, you have a very similar set of issues, right? Like, when the offense doesn't ask you to separate on your own, that's just not a skill set that you've developed or tweaked or refined over the last 2 years. And my other thing with him, John, and you know, this is a big thing I get caught up on with wide receivers. Yeah, those contested catches were great, and they were exciting, and they made for what looked like a highlight reel. That was just every target in those games that he got. But if you don't win positioning, which he very rarely does, it's going to be hard at the next level. I don't care if you're 6'4". Those corners are going to jump your routes. Those corners are more physical. They're going to push you off your routes, right? So let's put it together, John. Let's talk about a realistic path to production. Like, from watching his film, how do you get him into a spreadsheet? You know, because that's what it's all about, right? What's the actual fantasy football output here? And for Chris Brazzell, by the way, that projection sheet is available to all Rookie Big Board patrons over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Every single NFL team broken down, each individual offense, and then all the players together, you know, for accumulative rankings. 62% of Brazzell's targets in 2025 came 10 plus yards downfield. 27 of those were 20 plus yards downfield. That's really high. That's a really high number. And when you look at his overall catch rate, it actually looks pretty good. And so I think if you were just looking at his profile, like a very surface level, you'd see his catch rate and his yards per reception, and you'd get very excited. keep in mind his catch rate 10 plus yards downfield, not 20 plus yards downfield, 10 plus yards downfield. So we're just talking midfield or deeper. His catch rate is 54%. That's not great. So when I'm thinking about how do I put him into a spreadsheet, he's going to be between 50 and 55% projection. Now, that might sound bad, but there are players who can be fantasy relevant, top 36, wide receiver 3 or flex type wide receivers with a 50% catch rate. You just need to catch the ball downfield a lot, which that'll be the key. Because I do think that he's going to probably, fit in 15 to 17 yards per reception. He's going to catch the ball deep downfield. The question with these guys that have a low catch percentage, that are like 17 yards per reception, is do they have 40 targets or do they have 85 targets, right? That's what's going to make the difference. And scheme will tell us a little bit of that. But I think on the surface level, I'm kind of in between with Brazzell. I think maybe he gets 50 targets, and that's not going to be enough on its own. So that's where I land from his tape review. It's awesome. It's exciting. I'm just not convinced it's going to translate to the next level for fantasy production. But John, it's not just about the film. We're always trying to balance it out by looking at the analytical side here. And you've got 6 key benchmarks when you're looking at the production profile of these wide receivers. How does Brazzell line up against those benchmarks?
My model says he's good and he's got a future as an NFL player. And I actually think he might be more valuable to an offense as a deep threat than he is actually as a fantasy playmaker. And here's what I know the NFL is going to like about him. Yards per reception and the ADOT, Matt, they both smash my benchmarks and they're in line with each other. 15.5 yards per reception and an ADOT of 15.7. That coincides. With those numbers I gave earlier about those long distance receptions. He clearly is comfortable deep down the field. He's comfortable one-on-one in the secondary when he's against one defensive back. And the catch rate, Matt, considering how deep they are throwing him the ball, he had a 65% catch rate. I think he's got good hands. I don't think they're great, but I think they're good enough as a deep receiver. We also saw Joey Aguilar. He wasn't the most outstanding deep thrower, right?
Correct.
Brazzell, he has the body control. He makes adjustments in flight, and he did help his quarterback out a lot. If he got a more accurate deep thrower, he might be a little bit more impressive on those routes. I think he's going to be an efficiency fantasy player. He might have to be successful at the peak of his career with 90 targets, Matt, 60 receptions. Somewhere's in that, how many touchdowns he scores, that will be the difference on your fantasy team. He only has 136 career receptions. I don't think he's the alpha target magnet. Team dominator, 27%. We haven't seen him as that dominant playmaker day in and day out. I do think his receiving yards per team pass attempt, they're okay at 2.32. The benchmark is 2.5. He's almost there. So I do see him as being a decent fantasy contributor as an outside receiver. But Matt, what should the fantasy fans know about him?
Yeah, let's put it all together here, John, for some actionable fantasy football advice. I'm Chris Brazzell. I think he's a day 2 pick. I think there's definitely an NFL team that's going to want to take him. I'm thinking more round 3. And I think that's going to that combined with his combine performance. I think when you look at his analytical profile on the surface, it looks good. I think he's a late 2nd round pick in terms of fantasy football rookie ADP. 209 to 212 in a super flex league, maybe more 207 to 210 in a 1 quarterback league.
I like that value.
Yeah, and I'm going to sound like a hater here, but I really tried, John. I always go, and I go through this process of what's the path to production, and I do that first, and then I go and I try to find a projection comparison, like a player that performed in a similar way to how I think he's going to fit into a spreadsheet, and I try to find a player from 2025, and then I line up, kind of where they're going to be. So I found Jalen Naylor. He had 53 targets, right? That's
Yeah.
that's realistic year one. Maybe he earns more after that, but I think that's realistic year one. Jalen Naylor had a 55% catch rate. All right. That's, we're still lining up. He had 15.3 yards per reception. All right. That checks out. He had 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns for a rookie wide receiver. Like, that's not bad. Would we love 6 or 8? Of course, but I think that's realistic. Jalen Naylor was wide receiver 61 last year, and so I just see Chris Brazzell more in this, wide receiver 55 to 61 range. Like, again, if he gets 80 targets, then maybe he gets bumped up to wide receiver 40. I just can't see him returning value as a late second round rookie pick. And I believe that's where he's going to go, because folks are going to chase the upside. And I never knock anybody who chases the upside. Just understand that with Chris Brazzell, when you're chasing the upside, it comes with a lot of risk, right? It's a risky profile. It's a wide open class. If you want to lean into it, we won't knock you. But I always give advice that I follow. And my advice here is a fade. It's a full fade, 0 to 10%. Maybe you want to take a shot on him. I think I'm going to have 0%. I'll be rooting for my Vol to hit in the NFL, but I won't be rooting for him on my fantasy football team. I can tell you that much, John. Because at the end of the day, it's all about value. But our viewers and our listeners, John, they do not have to wait for their rookie drafts to get good value. They can just head on over now to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. For as low as $5 a month, folks, you could get access to the Devy Dynasty rookie rankings, personalized advice in the Discord, awesome community in there as well. Like 400 plus fantasy football sickos, a part of the Rookie Big Board community, and 121 page draft guide, 86 profiles. Link is in the episode description, patreon.com/rookiebigboard. John, we're going to be back real soon, breaking down another key prospect in the 2026 rookie class.